Hey everyone, it's Quadruple here, and this video is going to be about a magical question and a magical answer that are going to make you rich. They're going to help you do the same thing a lot faster. In fact, it's going to save you a shitload of time, and few people really use that to its full power. I'm having a few points here for that video. One thing before we get started, my name is Quadruple, and I'm on a mission to revolutionize productivity by doubling, tripling, or quadrupling the speed at which agency owners get rich. Yeah, I'll say let's get right into that because that is going to make a lot of progress for you on that journey. Let's get started by the very first principle, right? So if you want to achieve a goal, you need to do stuff to get there, right? So things need to happen for your goal to manifest in the world. And you are probably having a business because you don't want to trade your time for money. So we need to make sure in some way that you don't have to keep doing stuff to make sure that your goal keeps happening, right? And the way that we do this is by building systems. Because if we have a system, we have a predictable process that is getting a predictable output that we can also hand over to other people to execute on that. And then we don't need to, we have to maybe observe that process, but we don't need to do nearly as much, right? And on top of that, provided let's imagine right now you have all the information you need to get to your goal, you have all the skills necessary to get to your goal, and you have all the time invested that you need to get to your goal. You will be exactly at your goal, and maybe even further, anyway, you will be at your goal. And inverted, the reason why you're not at your goal yet is because you don't have all the information, you don't have all the skills that you need, or you just haven't put in enough time. Of course, it's usually going to be all of that, or at least 2 points of these. Rarely is it just one of them, right? And here comes a principle that is basically like a fundamental principle of the universe, but for some reason I've never seen someone else personally in my life that is so damn serious with that principle. I'm going to explain what that is. This principle is cause and effect, and I wanted to give you a little trigger warning here because I'm very, very emotional about this, because I've like in my life I've seen so many people not doing this properly, and this really pissed me off in some way, but I'll try to keep this as objective as possible, okay? So this is, by the way, it's not just cause and did some stuff into the camera. This is not just cause and effect, it's also a way of logic, the way that the reality works, and how consequences work, okay? So we already talked about cause and effect, meaning if something is happening that will lead to an outcome to manifest in the world, then the outcome is going to happen. It sounds very, very simple, but there are tons of people who are not doing this. Very casual example. Most people want to look good and they want to be healthy. And these people know that they need to do certain things to be healthy. Let's say, making sure that you're sleeping properly, that your diet is working properly. And that's basically it, but there are other things as well. The people know that they have to do this, and they want, or at least they say that they want to be healthy. Then why the fuck on earth are these people not doing the stuff that's going to get them there, right? That's like the main thing. You need to be very, very consequent. If you want to if you want to get to something, and you know that steps are necessary to get there, and that there is no alternative, then you need to take these steps, right? By the way, I'm not trying to scream at you or something, but I need to repeat this a ton because there are so many people out there, and even in the business space, like even people that I've been working with, some people even ahead from me, like almost everyone in business is ahead of me as of making this video, right? But there are so many people who just don't take this seriously, and the people who really do this, like billionaires, all of them take this completely seriously, meaning if there is no billionaire on earth who's not doing that, who's not operating in that way, then it's probably impossible to become a billionaire if you're not seeing the world in that way, right? And another thing to add to that is a concept that I just made up that I call reality pain. And this is the pain that you're getting when you're not operating in reality. So for example, if like the classical example is you want to do something and you have done everything necessary to get somewhere, but it's not happening, right? This deep pain of you knowing or thinking that everything is done right, but it's still not happening, right? Like something is wrong there and you just don't know what the actual problem is. And this reality pain, to me personally, I'm maybe a bit more sensitive to that than others, but I'm always getting that reality pain. Like if someone is telling me we're going to meet somewhere in like 5 minutes or something, and I genuinely believe, which used to be the case early on in my life, that it will take 5 minutes, then I'll feel this pain every single time when it took 6 minutes, which is quite okay, right? But usually if someone is saying 5 minutes, probably going to be 12 minutes or something, right? And maybe I'm an autistic person, but at least that helped me get to where I'm at right now, and this enables me to explain that idea to you, and this makes me very disciplined, because if I'm setting myself a goal and I know that I have to do something, then I'm just going to fucking do it. And if I see that there's something in the way, as soon as I recognize that, I'm just going to get rid of that, and that's something that I will also suggest you to do. Now, sorry, I'm blanking again. Okay, I have a little story on that, and this used to be the case pretty often in my past when I did things with other people. Let's say, for example, I'm meeting like my family like every single day. I usually do that, and then for example, I'm taking a walk with them, and then I talk about some topics or something. And then at the end, maybe I planned it to take like 1 hour or something, and it took like 2.5 hours, and I didn't really have the focus. I didn't take a look on my watch. I didn't know what the time was, so I basically just wasted a bit of time. Like I took like 2.5 times as long as I planned it to be. And after that, every single time when I'm doing something social with other people for too long, I get very, very upset. Not that I'm starting to like break certain like objects or something, or furniture or something, but it's very, very painful at the end of the day when you realize that you spend like a lot more time with other people than you thought you would, and you probably can relate to that as well. Chances are, when you're having a business, then you know that as well. And then like every single time when I talk about that with other people, they think like, okay, well, but the time was well invested, right? Another example will be like when I'm on a coaching call, and they're on like casual coaching call, like a lot of people ask questions. Some people ask questions and it takes like 25 fucking minutes, and the call is only 60 minutes long or something. And you ask your question, and your question is being answered, right? There's a very, very strong resistance for you to still stay on that call and see what questions the other people have. But if we're being really honest, if we take cause and effect, the principle that I just explained, to this situation, then what is going to get you the closest to your goal as the quickest, even in the long run, is to take the action, or to take action on probably the thing that you just got answered, so your question that is being solved, and to make sure that you're using this knowledge and apply this to get to where you want to get, right? But what most people do instead is that they just chill on the coaching call and see what questions other people have. But usually, if you're working on the same thing as the other people and you're doing that for some time, then the other people are only asking questions that are either a bit stupid, or questions where you already know the answer, or some random stuff. And honestly, man, woman, whatever, who's watching this video, I've been on coaching calls, and usually only like half of the people, or like 1/3 of the people, are actually intending to ask a question at all. Meaning, if I don't know, if let's say for argument's sake there are like 40 people on the call, 25 people or 30 people are not even there to ask to get a question answered, right? They're just on the call to spend some time with the other people, because it's probably high leverage, right? And that's always the answer I'm getting when I'm saying like, dude, like I wasted like so much time with other people, and then they say like, well, yeah, but it's going to help you in some way, and I'm like, yeah, maybe it's going to help me in some way, but it's not going to get me to my goal. If I want to get to my goal, it's this cause and effect thing, and that's just simply not going to get me there. So I think now I've been talking for like 9 minutes, and I didn't even talk about the question. So the key question that we have is what I'm currently doing, or what I want to do, going to get me to my goal, right? It's a very simple question, but this is a question that you need to answer, to ask yourself a lot of times. And sorry, I started to think again. As we already established, you need information, skill, or time to get to your goal. So in that sense of the question, the answer to that question, or if the question, what am I doing, is being answered by, it's going to help me get information for my goal, like you watching this video probably. It's going to help me get skill for my goal, if that makes sense. Like, let's say you're doing cold calling or something, some painful stuff like that. Or it's time being elapsed. For example, you're doing a split test, like A/B test, as some other people call it. I think split test is a way better term, but anyway, right? Like all of these answers will contribute, or would obviously contribute to your goal, and the key question would be answered with yes, right? So if you're ask yourself a question, and the question like, does what I'm doing right now help me get to my goal? Is being answered with yes, then you're doing it right. But a lot of times, the magical answer to that question is no. And the answer to the key question, which is the thing that I'm currently doing right now going to get me to my goal, is going to be the same answer as to the question, should I do this, what I'm doing right now? So if what I'm doing right now is not going to help me get to my goal, then I shouldn't be doing that, right? Very simple cause and effect nature. For some reason, 99% of people don't really apply that. And it's very, 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 very key. That's why it's a key question, right? It's very important for you to apply that to your life. And okay, I think I need another example. I don't know why I'm like flying out of focus so often. Now you might think, okay, well, Frederick, but what about the things that I actually enjoy in my life, right? I'm not here on this planet to just sacrifice everything for my goal. And I get that, obviously. I'm also doing some things that are not, it's not that I'm like some random like robot that's spending like 24 hours a day simply on stuff that's only going to get me the closest to my goal. That's obviously not the case. And I believe that no human on earth is actually capable of doing that. So like, like AI maybe is, but humans are not. And the answer to that is, well, there are a few caveats, but I'm going to talk about them later. But the answer to that is, how much is your goal actually your goal, right? Like, how much is your goal your priority? Maybe building your business and becoming successful is not as important to you as your relationship. Maybe you have like a wife and children and everything, or a husband and children, whatever, and you want to spend some time with them, and they're actually more important to you, to you and your life, than making money. And making money is not a key factor to making sure that the time that you're spending together is fun, right? If that is the case, then obviously you will rather optimize to that different goal, which is being happy with yourself and your family and social situations, or your friends could also be a different example. And then you'll start asking yourself the question regarding that, right? And I will highly suggest you, or highly recommend you, to have different phases of your life, and in each phase you're having one main priority goal, and everything else is less important than that. And the reason why I'll recommend you to do this is because it's going to save you a lot of energy. And each time you're asking, asking yourself that question is impossible when you have two priorities. And I honestly think that priority is a word that should never be used in a plural form, because otherwise it's not a priority, it's just a thing that you want to get in some way at some point in time. If you're having two priorities, then it's going to be impossible to ask yourself the question of, is what I'm doing right now going to get me to the goal, provided the goal obviously has to be your priority. So it's not important, it's not possible to do that. And one way to do this is to just set yourself one priority, and you're going to work on that until the priority and the goal belonging to that priority, for example, the goal, I want to become a millionaire, to the priority wealth in your life, is actually achieved. And then you focus on the next priority. Or you're having a certain time frame in your life, let's say 6 months for argument's sake, that you want to use to focus on that goal, but your goal doesn't have to happen in that time frame or something. It's just going to be the case that, let's say it's like right now it's July, meaning that in February, dude, I don't even know how to spell that fucking month in English, but like when these months are coming along, then you're going to start focusing on something else, right? These are two ways you can set yourself a time frame. Or I hope, by the way, that the bell outside is not distracting you too much from listening to what I'm talking. It's probably rather distracting myself. But these are two ways of doing this, and in my life, at least, it's the case that my priority, my single most important priority, is going to be the priority until it is achieved, and that drive in my human psyche is fulfilled, and I can start setting myself different goals on Maslow's hierarchy of needs or something like that, right? So the question becomes, like I said, this took me way too long and we got off track here, but if you know like how much your goal is your priority, and you realize that your goal is a lot of your priority, then you should sacrifice stuff that is lower on this hierarchy of whether something is your priority or not. So if you think, okay, like what about the things I enjoy in my life? Well, if you enjoy it, but it's not going to help you get to your goal, and your goal is important to yourself, and you know that you need to do stuff for your goal, and doing stuff meaning not doing other stuff, then you have to fucking remove the stuff that you maybe enjoy that is not going to help you get to your long-term goal, which is going to actually make you happy. I hope that makes sense. If it didn't make sense to you, just repeat that part of the video in like half the time or something, because I thought it's pretty important to get that part. And if there are other things you enjoy, it doesn't matter. Like, you know, stop giving a fuck about that if they don't get you to the goal that you want to get to, and if that goal is your true priority, right? Maybe it turns out that other things are your priority, and that's fine. But just be true to your priorities, right? That's like the main point of that. And yeah, I'm going to give you another example again. So another story of my life. I used to be in a boarding school for 4 years, and maybe that's the reason why I'm such a weird person, why I'm such an autistic person. Anyway, it happened to me that I was a lot more social during that time, right? I spent more time with other people, and I started my first businesses and worked on them and failed at them, obviously, because otherwise I wouldn't have started this business that I'm having right now. But I tried working on these businesses, and what happened pretty often is that I would meet with friends, and at the end of like every single conversation, I like to take walks with these people. We went back to my room, because like my room in the boarding school, and in the last 2 years I also used to live on a room, like in a room, I don't know, you get the point, on my own, and I just wanted to log in and work there. And I always knew, like at the end of that walk, obviously, that I wanted to go there at the end. And what happened, like in 60% of the cases or more, was that the people followed me there. And then it started to happen that I was like, okay, well, maybe I can just work and still spend time with them. And this is very, very, very dangerous, because that, again, is this ambiguity, I don't know, maybe it's just like a British American difference, but there was this ambiguity that I wanted to do two things, right? Essentially, having two priorities is literally multitasking. It's just on a different level, right? And I tried to work there on what I wanted to do, and I like the people sitting next to me, right? It took me literally 5 to 10 times longer to achieve something, and like when you genuinely look at that situation, it doesn't make so much sense, right? You're literally just sitting there and there's another person, and every now and then you're talking to them, but it literally feels like there's this like evil force that's just holding you back, because I don't know, you focus way worse, and you can't even if you're like 100% awake, you're like you're not on some drug or something, you had slept well, you died, is fine. It's still like there's so fucking much friction between you executing on that task and talking to the other person at the same time. And now after that, in like as a recap of that boarding school time, I have a few friends from there, but most people, and also a lot of people that I used to talk to when trying to work, I didn't care about them like too much at all anymore. And that is usually the case in your life as well, right? You have like a few people that you genuinely care about, but it's probably not going to be more than 15 people or something. And with all other people, right, sure, you want to meet them every now and then, but you don't want to have them interfering with your goal, right? And you need to be very, very consequent with that. And in such a situation, if someone is coming to me and saying like, yeah, well, but you could have spent more time socially with these people. No, I want to get to my goal, and that is not my goal, so I shouldn't do that, right? I hope I'm bringing that point home, that you just need to be very, very consequent with the stuff that's happening. I don't know if you even say consequent in English or if you say consistent, but if there's cause and effect and you want effect, you need to cause. And doing cause means to not doing stuff that's not cause, right? Because you can only do one thing at a time, like I already established with the example with like multitasking, right? So that's that thing. And now the thing is, obviously, in your life, there are not things that are getting you to your goal and things that are not getting you to your goal. It's on a binary like spectrum, as basically almost everything is in life. So the question is actually not just if something is getting you to your goal or not. The question is, how much is this getting me to my goal? And are there other things that get me to my goal more? And this obviously makes it a lot more complicated to establish what the right answer is for that question, or to find that out. But I just wanted to make it a bit simpler and easier to understand for the beginning with the question, the magic golden key, like whatever question, to make it easier to understand. But really, you want to think about different things that you can do, or different tasks that are currently going to help you get closer to your goal or to your current bottleneck in your business, to solve that or something. And then you want to look at different things and think like, okay, like how much do they help me, right? Because spending 20 hours, as a classical example, on your website is maybe going to help you get to your goal because people are going to see more confidence in your website. But are there other things that are going to help you get to your goal more? Yeah, sure, right? Providing value for your customers, for example, or making YouTube videos to see that other people are understanding that you can actually deliver value for them. I hope I'm doing that properly at the moment, or at least I'm trying to get better at that, right? But that if like you might spend a lot of time on your website or improving your profile picture or to make sure that your branding color design is working better. But if we're honest, this is still procrastination, even though it's getting you to your goal, right? And the question then becomes, okay, how much does something get me to my goal? And then you always want to find like the things that are actually necessary for your goal. And if something isn't necessary for your goal, and working on the necessity is more effective, then you can essentially just remove the stuff that is not necessary for your goal. I hope that makes sense. So I obviously you like consciously thinking about, is that more important than that? It's impossible because you can't track the importance of something for your goal by different numbers. So it's going to be pretty hard to find out, if something like what's more important. You will have to do this by gut feeling. If you say gut feeling, I don't know, but this will be the way to find that out. And you need to accept that sometimes you're probably going to make some mistakes and sometimes you'll work on things that are a bit less effective. But the reason for that is usually because you don't have the right skill, you don't have the right information, or you didn't have the right time you haven't invested the right amount of time to find out that what you're doing is actually not right. You just have to accept that it's not always going to be the case, like at any point in time, right? But you need to view this on the scale, like what is most important for my goal or what is more important or less important. And usually when you're doing something and you ask yourself, does this help me to get to my goal? You're not going to just answer with yes or no. You're going to answer with yeah, a bit or a bit more, or no, like not that much really, or yeah, a lot, And if you start realizing that the answer is below the average answer of the things that you're doing towards your goal, then you should not do it. And if it's above the average answer, if that makes sense, then you should rather do it. So if the average answer to the question, if what you're doing right now to get to your goal is this is going to help you decently, but not like 100%, then if you see something that is, yeah, if you see something where the answer is, yeah, it is going to help me get to my goal a bit, then you would not want to do this. And if the answer is, yeah, this is going to help me get to my goal a lot, then you will want to do this, right? And if your average answer was, it's in some way, shape, or form going to help me get to my goal, then it's going to help me get to my goal a bit, will be the right answer. But in the case where the average answer was higher towards the goal, like more positive, then that will be the wrong case, and it's not going to get me to my goal at all. It's obviously always going to be a answer where you would want to stop doing that, right? So now that we have spent almost half an hour that I've spent almost half an hour to explain that concept to you, I want to drill this point home in more of a visual way, German accent kicking in again, and to really explain and also in what ways can you do this, what are the caveats. But now you understand the principle. There are things that are going to help you get to your goal more, and other things, and you need to be ruthless with cause and effect. You just need to say, okay, this is going to help me, this is not going to help me, I'm going to stop this, I'm going to stop drinking alcohol with my friends. This is probably something you've already quit, at least I hope so, because this is not going to help me get to my goal. And it's not even fucking relaxation, because if I just spend the time doing nothing and staring at a blank wall, it will be more productive. And even if you think, okay, but I still need to be social, then spending some time with genuine friends that are not drinking alcohol will still help you more, right? Alcohol is literally just an addiction, and it's very fucking dangerous, and is basically the worst thing you can do in any situation when you want to achieve something positive in your life, because alcohol can kill you within an evening, right? If you're doing stupid stuff. But so tons of people have this analogy of diamonds are formed under pressure, right? And if I'm going to talk about some things like right now that are going to help you like drill this point home, because diamonds in this case are going to be like we are going to be diamonds / the goal that we're going to achieve is like a diamond, and we need pressure to do that. And on a physical level, like in physics, pressure is force divided by the area. Okay, so if you have let's say if you have like 1 Newton, which isn't that much, it's like 100 grams like lying on something, right? If you have 100 Newton pressing against something, and these 100 Newton are like altogether are pressed against something that is 1 square meter, or like 1 square feet, whatever for the Americans, big. If 1 Newton is being pressed on 1 square meter, then the pressure is going to be a lot higher than if it's pressed against 1 square kilometer, right? And the other way around, if it's pressed against 1 square centimeter, then the pressure is going to be a lot higher, right? It's the same amount of energy, but it's concentrated on a lower area, and if the area is lower, then the pressure is higher. So pressure is force divided by area, and decreasing the area is basically increasing your focus. And to give you some other examples, the classical thing obviously is the magnifying glass. So if you it can happen where you have like a magnifying glass and the sun is shining on that glass, and the light refraction is working in a way that the light is going out of that magnifying glass, and literally it can set like wood on fire, right? Just because the light is being focused, and all of these light rays are being focused on like this one point, and it's essentially the light pressure, if you want to call it like that, is like 200 times higher or something, and then something is starting to burn, right? And that's also why the magnifying glass is like the classical example of focus. The other example, if you are watching like Charlie Morgan, Sam Ovens, or maybe other people nowadays, then you probably know this classical example where you have like this like circle, and you have like 10 different arrows pointing in 10 different directions, and each of them consume energy. But instead of doing it like that, you might as well take one arrow that's like 10 times as long, that's going to get you somewhere. And these 10 arrows are a method for like things that you're doing in your life. And if you're going 1 inch in 10 directions, it's going to cost you as much energy as moving 10 inches into one direction. But being 10 times better at something than everyone else, it's going to get you a lot further in life than being like as good as everyone else, or 1 times better, something like that in 10 areas, right? You want to be very, very good at very little things, because that's how focus applies. That's another example. Another example would be if you have like a dam. So when I don't know how they are called in English, but there are like these lakes where I think they're called like water reservoirs or something like that. So you have like water in there, and then you have like this dam, right? And in lots of cases, obviously, people want to take like water out of this lake, and what they're doing is at some point in this is my hand, obviously, right? But let's just believe that this is a dam, right? You have like a pipe or like a hole, and through that hole the water can flow out of the dam. And let's say the hole is like really, really big, and like the same amount of water is flowing out of there, then the water flow will be a lot slower than, for example, when you have like a very, very slim, like tiny hole, and if the same amount of water has to flow through the same hole, then because the area is a lot smaller, it has to be a lot quicker, right? And I plan to do this like with a physical example right here, but honestly, I like the cleanness of my room, and I don't want to spill water around here. But for example, let's say you have like a very a pot, right? And you want to fill water into that, and you have like water flowing into that pot, and you see like the water level is slowly rising, right? And let's say in a different example, you have a glass that is obviously has like a lot less like area in than the pot. If you're filling the same amount of water into that glass, the surface level of the water is going to rise a lot quicker, because I guess it's obvious, I don't need to explain that, right? But this is another example of focus. And each and every time you just want to reduce the area, so the amount of things that you're doing, and you want to put them on a small amount, and obviously that's going to increase the speed. And if I had shown you like a live example of like water being filled up in like in a pot versus a glass, obviously you will see that the speed is a lot quicker in the glass, especially when it's very, very, even if it's like a glass straw, for example, right? Then it will be like even quicker. And this is the fundamental key to being quick at doing stuff that's going to help you get to your goal. Okay? And essentially what we're doing each and every time when we're thinking, okay, is this going to help me get to my goal? And the answer is no, and we stop doing that, is that we're reducing the surface area of what we're doing, right? We're going to metaphorically increase the pressure because we're putting the same amount of energy in this area. We're metaphorically going to make sure that that our magnifying glass is being stronger and putting like more light rays on one thing instead of them going like somewhere else. We're metaphorically decreasing the amount of arrows and increasing the length of arrows that we have in our arbitrary circle. And we're going to make sure that the water is flowing out of the dam quicker with more force again, right? And it's the same thing with clarity, right? If you want to get more clarity, you're in a state right now where you have too many things. And if you remove things, then your clarity is immediately going to increase. Like the less things you have, the more clarity you're going to have. So whenever you feel like you're not having clarity at the moment, just remove stuff, ask yourself where do you want to get, and yeah, essentially just remove everything that's not necessary for that, right? So that's one thing. And now I'm going to talk about the caveats, right? So until now, you're probably going to think, wow, this is like incredible, such an effective tactic. But there are a few caveats to this, and they are going to be pretty important, because if you don't know about them, you're going to get into some serious trouble. And if you would take this like 100% serious, it's obviously going to be impossible to follow that principle or whatever behind that, right? So first caveat is longevity, right? If we are looking on our day, then for example, sleeping, right? If you're sleeping like 8 hours a day or 9 hours a day, then obviously sleeping is not directly going to help you get to your goal, right? But if you suddenly stopped sleeping and you'll just work 24/7 and did nothing else but like the literal like highest leverage activity that's going to get you to your goal, you'll probably die after 5-6 days or something, because you just didn't sleep, or you'll feel very, very unwell after already like 2 days or even sooner probably, right? And the reason for that is obviously because sleep is going to increase the longevity of you as a person. So you're going to obviously live longer when you sleep as compared to when you're not sleeping. But it's also going to, like sleep is just like one way of doing that, right? But it's also going to increase the longevity of your business and like your entire output in your life, right? Like if you live longer, you can obviously do more than, if you don't do it, right? And sleep is one way of doing that. Relaxation is another way of doing that. Talking to other people to some degree is also a way of doing that. And that is very important, obviously, because you need to stay healthy, because if you're not healthy, you're going to die at some point. Or productivity / the amount of energy that you can even bring up is going to be decreased as well, right? So if we want to increase the pressure, then we want to reduce the surface area to less by removing stuff that are not helping us get to our goal. But obviously, if we do this too much, we remove stuff that's actually conducive to increasing our energy, like sleeping, then obviously our energy is getting worse as well, and that's obviously not conducive to us being quicker at getting to our goal, right? So staying healthy is very important, but it doesn't take you as much time as you need, right? Spending 1 hour with other people every single day, or maybe 2 hours, it's going to sustain you for a very, very long time, and you don't need to spend like tons of hours with other people every single day. It's just a waste of time. If you don't have any friends in real life, maybe staying on a coaching call might be pretty effective because you want to see other people, but it's probably not the case, and it will genuinely waste your time, right? There are other ways to spend time with other people. Maybe even you could do this in a very, very productive way. If like your only need is to spend more time with other people, maybe you could just spend like time with other people doing sports, and that's another way of increasing your health that you have to do anyway, right? So that's one thing. But another context where longevity is playing an important role here is your prefrontal cortex, right? The prefrontal cortex, if you look at like my head from the side, is essentially this part here in the front, and this is where the human mind is taking like the logical decisions. That's what we as humans have a lot more as compared to like apes and monkeys and like animals like that. They don't have it that much, and we as humans are far more intelligent because of that part. But our dear friend, the prefrontal cortex, is it consumes a ton of energy, right? And our prefrontal cortex, as much as we like him, is going to be gone at some point, or has to recover. And we cannot always be at like 100% of a discipline level by removing stuff that we don't want to do, right? It's pretty obvious now that I'm talking about that, but we need to take care of that. And the thing is, it's going to happen to you at some point where you are still going to be doing some things that are not like 100% important to your goal, or less important than other things, but you're just doing that because you have like that decision fatigue, that is just preventing you from making other decisions, or like doing more stuff, and you just can't get the energy anymore to think about that consciously, and your subconscious is just dealing with that as best as it can, right? And that's okay, obviously, right? Nobody has 100% discipline, like I already said, and this is another way of longevity. And for that reason, we cannot abuse this tactic to apply it everywhere in our life. We can only apply it to a certain degree in different contexts and at different problems. And the more we use it, the more likely, or the higher the danger is that at some point we're not going to have that power anymore. We need to take a break, and the break is going to be more destructive than the extra like places where we could have applied this rule of increasing the focus. I hope that made sense, but this is very important, so we cannot apply this everywhere, and once, because it's just going to decrease our long-term ability to apply that. And the other way that we cannot always use it is because our health is still pretty important, and things that might seem unproductive, like lying around, are still going to be healthy. And that's, for example, also the reason why I'm not working 12 hours every single day. I'm actually working like 8 hours, like eight and 1/4 of an hour every single day on average. And I take a lot of breaks between my work, because I know if I want to do this long term, I better gotta do that stuff, right? And I'm still like sometimes feeling, dude, like I'm getting close to burnout or something, right? You gotta be very, very careful with that. And working 12 hours a day is not going to be productive long term, right? Very important. So you see at this point that even like caveat 1 could have already killed you, right? If you didn't know about that. Now the second caveat is smoothness, and smoothness is essentially the way in which you communicate that new rule that you're going to apply to other people. Or you probably already know about that principle, but just applying this like very, very consequently. So for example, if there's another person and the person says let's say for argument's sake, it's like your girlfriend and you want to spend, or your boyfriend and you want to spend time with her or him. I'm just going to take the example of girlfriend, because chances are that when you're watching this video that you're a male person. Now, if your girlfriend wants to spend a lot of time with you, and not just like 2 hours a day or something, but essentially just like the entire day, then obviously this is going to have like conflict with your goal. And in our mind, we know this is not going to help us to get to our goal. We need to be consequent. This is our goal. We want this more than just some time right now with our girlfriend, because if we have a goal, then we can have a way better life with her or wife or whatever, and like later in life. So we need to work on our goal, and this is not important, so we got to stop that, right? But we can't just go to another person and tell, well, now it's time to stop giving a fuck about spending time together with you, because I have a goal and that is more important than spending time with you, right? If you talk like that to other people, it's going to be very, very rude, and they're probably not going to like you, and it's going to have a very negative effect on your social life. And in case you're wondering why I'm grinning so much right now, I'm a very direct person, and this is something that I'm personally struggling with a lot. But the problem is, when you're not struggling with that enough, or like you're not struggling with that at all, then chances are that you are compromising your agreeableness with your ability to be selective on the things that you're doing with your time. Meaning, if you're not able to tell another person, dude, I just got to stop working, or sorry, dude, I just got to stop doing something with you right now. If you're unable to do this, and you're just doing what they would like you to do, then obviously you're not operating in the way that's going to help you get to your goal the quickest, or to get you to your goal at all, right? So you don't want, you to some degree, obviously you need to tell that to other people directly, but if you have the right people in your surrounding, they're going to accept that. If they're not accepting that, then just get rid of them. And if they're from your direct family, just reduce contact as much as you can, because if there are people who don't respect your core values as a person and your goals in your life and where you truly want to get to, then they're probably not healthy people in your life. So just remove contact, right? As much as possible, reduce contact. And if you're taking this too much to an extreme and you're saying like, okay, fuck you, I'm going to work now, essentially, right? Which is this like direct consequence, okay? I'm not able to spend more time with you right now. I have to do this. This is more important than you. Bye. This is obviously pretty unkind. So you want to do this in a different way, and I'm not like the like person, like the best communicator, right? But this is something you have to figure out as well. So that's caveat number 2, and also pretty important. But this probably doesn't kill you immediately, at least if you're not doing some crazy stuff. But yeah, so now you're probably going to think, okay, like, how can I actually do this stuff, right? I've now been talking about this entire fucking thing for 41 minutes, and you don't even know like what like how can you actually do that, right? And or you have an idea how to do that, but you don't know it exactly, right? As is probably the case with all YouTube videos, nobody's telling you like what can you exactly do, or few people do. Okay, so there are obviously different levels on which you can do this, right? So there, it's like on a scale of like a very, very micro level to a very, very macro level. And a very micro level is when you're doing a specific task, then you might be very selective with the things that you're talking about, which is, by the way, quite ironic, because I'm literally talking about everything that this topic could have. But as of right now, I genuinely believe that the more I talk about this topic and the more angles I'm giving you on the idea that I'm talking about, the more is that actually going to help you. And every single thing that I can talk about here right now is going to help you a lot. And I could do this way worse by talking about this for like 48 hours straight or something, right? Which is obviously impossible, but you know, this is like an example where you might like add like more things, right? But let's say, or dude, like honestly, I'm not having the energy right now to come up with an example, but if you have a certain context and you want to, so a task that you're working on, you might start to ask yourself, okay, is like the specific thing in the task that I'm doing right now actually a key thing to accomplishing just the task that I'm doing right now, right? So if you are going on a call, like let's say for example a sales call, right? If at the beginning of the call you are used to talk about their personal life and the weather outside and their like entire like history of their entire life for 15 minutes or something, this is obviously not key to getting them to buy from you. The reason that's not the case is because there are other people who make tons of money with sales. They're not like talking about that for like 1 minute or something, right? They're not breaking the ice for 15 minutes or something, right? So this will be a very, very strict example where it's pretty clear that something is not going to help you get to your goal. But obviously sales calls are a thing that you're repeating quite often, and there it's obviously going to be quite obvious, right? But if you're doing things that, or if your task is something that you just do once or very, very rarely, then it's going to happen pretty quickly that you will start to work on things that are not like 100% important. And at the end of the task, you might think like, okay, I could have genuinely just left that out entirely, and I will still be there at the end of the task where I wanted to be in the first place. Sorry, get to the camera once again. All right, so that is one way to do this, and I honestly don't have the 100% accurate way of looking at a certain task and then like always being able to see like, okay, is this like the highest leverage thing that I should be working on right now? But I guess just having more of an awareness on that and thinking about like, is this key to my task, is going to help you a lot already. Now, this is obviously the smallest level, so it's like the most micro. So if this doesn't happen very frequently, it's not going to have so much of an effect as compared to the medium level and the macro level, which brings us to the medium level, which is your routine and your environment. So for example, if you have a daily routine where you're taking like 3 hours or some crazy stuff for a gym workout, then you're obviously repeating that every single day, or you know, like every single week at least, on certain days of the week, then the effect of that is going to be way bigger, and it's on a larger scale, right? And there you might start to ask yourself, okay, do I need to do this in the day really for so long, or do I need to do this at all? And how much is this actually going to help me get to my goal, and how much are other things more important to get me to my goal, right? So that's basically one the core like fundamentals of how to build like a daily routine that's most conducive to your success or quick success, because success isn't so hard, but you just want to get it like before you're dead, right? So that is another level to do this, and obviously it's not just your routine but also your environment. So for example, so this could be your everyday life or literally just the room that you're in. And for example, the room that I'm in right now, of course there are some things that might not be like 100% necessary for my success, but there are tons of things in here that are not going to help me at all, but these are just going to make sure that the atmosphere is better, right? Which brings us to the longevity principle again. But for example, here we have this random thing, right? Like a glass ball, like sphere in my room here. And obviously this is not going to help me get to my goal. It just looks beautiful and I want to have it in here, because if I don't have this there, then thing on my wall where it stands in. I don't know if you say like, whatever. It's going to be, it looks very sterile and very boring. So I just want to have some colors, obviously. But other than that, there are not so many things in this room that are not very practically going to help me with my work, right? It's not like a TV or an Xbox or like a Nintendo Switch, like some gaming console. I'm being very, very strict here. And I, like 1.5 months ago, I used to ask myself with every single item in my room, is this going to help me get to my goal? Or is this going to help me to get to my goal enough for it to be worth it to stand in this room, for example, right? And this plant, as you might see it here, is obviously also a bit conducive because it's just improving the atmosphere, not only of this video, but also of my life in general here, because obviously when I'm working, I'm spending a lot of time here. So yeah, that's essentially another level where you can do this. And another level is the very, very, very macro level, right? So this could literally be your chain of action in business. And that's going to be the example that I'm going to take for that now, which is you obviously want to get your goal, which is usually like a certain revenue level or a certain level of profit in total, not like per month or something, just, you know, like millionaire, billionaire, something like that. Obviously you have a certain, or there are certain actions necessary, and usually they have a certain order in which you should take them that is going to help you the most to get to your goal. And when you build that chain of action, it's also going to be pretty important that you're thinking, okay, is this most effective for my goal or not, right? So this is the macro level, we have the medium level, and we also have the micro level. And these are levels that you should start looking at your goals and start to remove stuff, because chances are there's a ton of stuff that you can remove, and in that way, a way that you can reduce the area, and in that way, a way that you can just increase the pressure, and you're going to be more of a diamond afterwards, right? So that's that. Then the point is saying forgetting. I think the point is just that at some point you're going to forget that, but I already talked about that. And yeah, which brings us to the third caveat, which is the difference between convergence and divergence. If you don't know what that is, convergence, to make it very, very simple, is something decreasing, like this is convergence and this is divergence. And convergent thinking is what we are doing when we're removing other things and when we're making things simpler. Divergent thinking is when we're starting to get ideas and starting to expand on things and starting to be a bit more creative, right? And if you want to be optimally divergent when you need to be divergent, and optimally convergent when you need to be convergent, then you should be doing one thing at a time, and you should not be trying to do both at once, because then you're probably just going to get like a heart attack or something, what this is looking like. But yeah, so the thing is, with convergence and divergence, people in general, but by nature, some people are more convergent and other people are more divergent. I personally would consider myself rather as a convergent person, but don't just believe that you are a certain type of person. You can change everything about your personality, basically. You just have like some natural tendencies. I can be very, very divergent, like me when I started to come up with ideas to talk about for this video. If I was very convergent, this video will be like 3 minutes long, but it wouldn't have helped you nearly as much. And obviously, in that sense, it's more useful for you if I'm not talking in a very convergent way in my videos, right? I hope that makes sense. But you want to have certain days in your life, maybe, or it's hours, right? I'm not like 100% of an expert at that yet, but you want to have certain times in your life where you want to be more divergent and come up with new ideas or be a bit more creative, and you want to have or like add things to your daily routine or your way of executing on your business tasks, and you want to have other days of your life where you want to be particularly convergent. This could be something like cost cutting in your business, where you look at everything and every single expense that you have, and you want to make sure that your business is getting leaner, right? Literally, when you're trying to build muscle, you're being divergent most of the time when you're building muscle, right? When you're doing the bulk. And when you do the cut, you're being convergent. And that is really important, right? You want to be convergent at some point, and you want to be divergent. And obviously the thing, like, does this help me get to my goal? No, stop doing it, is the core principle of convergence, right? So you're just being convergent when you're doing that. And for that reason, like I already established multiple times, you cannot be convergent all the time. Now that I've explained everything that I currently know about this, or want to talk about that without boring you to the death, it's going to be probably you're going to ask yourself, what if I just don't have the discipline to follow everything that Frederick just said in this fucking like 50-minute video? Like how can I be disciplined enough to actually do that? And the first answer to this is look at your current situation, look at where you want to get to, look at the way that where you are right now is not nearly at the point where you want to be, or simply not at the point where you want to be, and then be fucking pissed off. If you want to be a billionaire, then go look on, actually do this right now, right? Look on your bank account number, and if it's not saying a billion, if in the case where you wanted to be a millionaire, but it's saying like 2,000 or something, then get pissed off because of that, right? Just be unhappy. That's like the first thing, because then the question is, what's more important, is it your goal as your priority and stuff like that, or your comfort? Because you need discipline, obviously, to achieve anything at all. Because if we were completely undisciplined, then we will just follow on our tribes by nature, which in modern society are just going to make us fat losers. And obviously, that's not the point where we really want to be alive, because we don't want to be miserable, right? But you just need to get rid for some part of some comfort. Now, that is probably not the case where you're at, right? Because probably you're already making money, or you're close to doing that, and you already know like the basic fundamentals of discipline. And then the other thing is, how can like you might still have the problem of not having enough discipline to apply this in your everyday life, right? It's obviously very important to have like a specific action item. So the usual time frame it takes for a human to get used to a certain behavior or to form a habit is 21 days. As a margin of safety, you might as well go with 30 days or something like that, or like 4 weeks instead of 3. But if you just try your best to follow this principle of trying to remove stuff out of your life, in case you're not having like 20 billion other things in your brain at the same time, try your best to think with that question, does what I'm doing right now help me the most to get to my goal, or are there other things more important to that, or more important than that to get me to my goal? You want to ask yourself that question as often as you can in these 21 days, or 30 days, whatever. And after that time has elapsed, this is going to be to some degree burnt into your subconscious, and you're going to automatically leave things away that are not going to help you, right? That's essentially also a way of building a skill. And as soon as these days are over, it's going to be, so the energy it's going to take at the beginning is like that, and that's going to get easier and easier and easier and easier, right? There's going to be the curve. Like at the beginning, it's going to be very, very hard, and then it's going to get easier and easier and easier. And this is essentially how you're getting used to something and how you're building a skill. And being convergent in that sense is building a skill. And then the thing is, like we already established, you cannot put this energy into all the things, right? You can, it's going to deplete at some point, and your prefrontal cortex is going to say, fuck you, you wasted like 5,000 calories by thinking consciously 24/7. Obviously, you cannot do this on all the things. Another thing is, you want to do this more on the things that are bigger or are more on a micro level, like your chain of action in business, than on things that are more micro, right? That's one thing. But there are micro things, like the way that you get up in the morning, for example, that are still more important than some bigger things that you, like having a mastermind that you just have once per year, right? The way that you do a certain mastermind once a year, for example, is not going to have so much of an effect as your morning routine is going to have, even though your morning routine is more on a micro level, meaning that you want to put the most attention onto the things that you're doing that are having a very big effect, meaning that they are on a macro level, or that you're doing them often, or that you're doing, it's like how often are you doing this times how micro is that thing, right? And the bigger that number, like arbitrary number is, that's going to be the result of that equation, the more should you look on that, and the less, for example, if something is being done very seldom, and it's a very, very micro thing, then obviously you don't want to look at that too much, right? So, for example, right now, as I'm just like getting into these videos, there are probably tons of small mistakes I'm making, or some small things I'm talking about in videos that are pretty like violating the core rules of what I just talked about. But like first, like as of right now, they're very, 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 very small. And as of right now, I'm also not doing these videos so often. At some point, I'm probably going to just work on the skill of figuring out like how can I remove all the stuff that's really not that important from my videos. But that, for example, is something that I'm not removing right at the moment. Or for example, it's like really small things, right? We don't want to be like 100% autistic, because that's just not going to help us. It's literally going to take more energy away from us and more power and more speed towards our goal than if we just didn't do it in the first place. But for example, on big things like your routines, you want to spend more time to make sure that you're literally removing as much as you can. And if in case you're struggling with doing that constantly, just take like one day every quarter or something, or at the end of every quarter, where you should probably be doing like taking like a break. You might look at what you're currently doing and taking everything apart and thinking, okay, like where can I remove stuff? Okay, essentially doing like cost cutting, but with your time and energy in your every single day life. Okay, so that is the way to get like the most discipline into that. And now I wanted to give you like another specific action item on this topic, which is so after watching this video, or if you have to do something immediately after this video, then just as soon as you can, just plan this into your daily like calendar or something. You want to, I will say for argument's sake, immediately after this video, you're going to look at your long-term strategy, and you want to do exactly what I just talked about, right? You want to look at that and you want to think, okay, how much is this going to get me to my goal? What about the other things? Are the other things going to help me more? What is the average of how much something is getting me to my goal? Is this here below the average or above the average, right? And then you just want to relentlessly remove as soon as you recognize that something is not necessary or necessary enough. And if something is necessary but not so much, then you just want to reduce the amount of time or energy that you put into that. Maybe you can also just hire that, or outsource this to another person that you can hire, something like that, and you want to remove that. And you also obviously want to find out what your priorities are in life, first of all, but you probably know that already, right? But then you want to find out like what are the priorities to get me to the goal in my priority, and the priorities for these priorities and everything. So yeah, it's getting complicated here, but you want to remove everything that is not very important. That's the first thing. This is like the total, like complete macro level. And then you want to get on the medium level, which is your environment, and you also want to do the same thing. You want to literally look at every single object in probably your kitchen, the room where you sleep, and the room where you work, which are like the most important rooms, obviously, in your life, I hope. And and then you just want to see like, okay, how much is this going to get me to my goal? And the more it's going to have the more it's going to be below the average effectiveness towards your goal, the more that you want to remove that. Like for example, alcohol or cigarettes, you should probably not have them in your house if you want to be a healthy individual, right? So you want to do that. And then, like I said, you want to drill this question in for 21 days. And like I said, you can use the principle of doing this on like specific days on the month of the quarter or something, or the month afterwards. But you want to drill this question like, does this help me get my goal? On basically everything that you can for at least 21 days. After that, you can get your conscious mind full with other things again. You don't have to do this like all the time for forever, but it's just going to help you build the skill a lot. And after these 21 days or like 30 days, it's going to be a lot easier for you to do that stuff. Last thing to say about this, if you don't get this, you will stay poor. And the less you get this in your life, the more you're going to stay poor. And the more you get this, the more you're going to get rich, right? This is very, very key. And I'm obviously not a billionaire as of right now making this video. I don't even know if I want to become a billionaire, if that's like if that's even effective for me getting to my goal. Might be the case, whatever. Anyway, doesn't care, nobody cares. Like me thinking about this has already got me to, by the way, if you're watching this video right now, it's like 1 hour right now. I'm literally 16 years old and I know stuff like that, right? And this is not to brag. This is mainly because I just followed that, right? I've already made like some $1,000 online. Obviously, there are other 16 years old who are like millionaires or something. And that's also because I had like a ton of shiny object syndrome in the past, and this is like the 4th, 5th, 6th business that I'm having, but hopefully the last one. And I went through a ton of shit just because I have this framework, right? Every single person on earth could have done this, what I have done in my life at 13 years of age or 12 years of age, right? I'm just at the beginning of this, right? If you're watching this in 4 years or something, you're going to see the effect that this had on my life. And then you'll probably see, okay, dude, like this is crazy. This is going to help me a lot. But this is the way the billionaires think. And if you don't get this, if you can't ingrain this principle into your mind, you're going to stay poor, right? Very, very important. And yeah, that's really everything for this video. So if you want to scale an agency, but every single day you feel like you could have done 10 times more than you actually wanted to do, there's a link in the description where you can check out or learn more about how we can help you beyond these videos. It doesn't matter to me really if you click that or not. What matters to me is that your valuable time in your life is being saved. So I wanted to leave that door open. That's everything for this video. If you want YouTube to recommend you more of these in-depth, long hour, like whatever videos, then you can feel free to like and subscribe this video. Thanks for watching, man. Thanks for watching to the end, especially. That means you have probably a ton of attention span. This will help you change your life forever. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.